of those aspects of a sustainable future that's been in the press quite a lot over the last couple of weeks is hydrogen. Blue hydrogen, green hydrogen. Roger Atkins, the founder of Electric Vehicles Outlook, is now going to take us through a whirlwind tour of hydrogen. Over to you, Roger.
After that very, very stark reality check, I think this is going to be a bit of a challenge, but we've got a 15-minute challenge. We'll know when we're finished because there's going to be a fire alarm test at 10 o'clock, by the way. So when I and everyone else hears a very loud noise, we're done. So can I invite to the stage, please, Enass, Nico, and Joe? Please, give them a big round of applause. So you've all got skin in the game one way or another in terms of hydrogen, or certainly finding solutions for climate change in every aspect in terms of your championing of all of that, Nico. So hats off for getting out there and getting stuck in. Joe, let me ask you a question first of all. So why hydrogen? You've got electric buses, you've got hydrogen buses. Give us a quick gist of what's the difference between running a battery electric bus and a hydrogen electric bus.
So we make a diesel bus, a battery bus, and a hydrogen bus. A diesel bus does about 330 miles. The battery bus does about 110 to 150 miles, so half the distance. The hydrogen bus is doing about 300 miles. So in essence, if you want to go battery buses, you need twice as many of them. If you go hydrogen, it's the same like-for-like solution.
Right. Okay. Good. That's got buses done. But obviously, there's a lot more to it than that. I realise a lot more. Enass, you've been running a business for 7 years, focusing on the development of hydrogen. We see around the world different kind of, if you like, cadences of adoption. In Asia, particularly, especially in Japan, there is a hydrogen economy already. Why haven't we got one here yet? As such, you know, you've been labouring away, as I say, for 7 years. You've got a great academic background from Cambridge. You know what you're talking about. What is it that you know that not enough other people know?
I think everyone already knows that in order to create a new economy, it takes time. And that's why it's been, I sit on the innovation side of things. So we build new technologies that nobody built before. And to roll them out into the market and to scale them, it takes a lot more than 7 years and a lot more than one company.
Right. Okay. Now, let me just do a quick poll. Anyone driving a hydrogen electric car? Fuel cell EV? Anybody? No. Nico, why aren't we seeing fuel cell electric cars in any real number? There are cars around like the Toyota Mirai, etc. So what's your take? You know a bit about cars and engines and motors and all that stuff, don't you? What do you think about electric cars with fuel cells?
Well, why today is because there's no refueling. That's the biggest issue. But anyways, I've spent a lot of time looking at electric cars versus fuel. I mean, they're both electric cars, but fuel cell versus battery cars. And for me, I've come to the conclusion that for our everyday use cars, hydrogen is just not the solution, because batteries provide us with a very, very good solution. And with the lack of renewable energy sources that we have anyways, it's much better to focus on hydrogen for solutions, as you said, for buses, shipping, planes. I mean, we've seen a company in Cranfield flying the first planes with hydrogen now, called Zero Avia. And I think definitely that makes a lot of sense. And the reason is because, first, I know you're working on the storage technology, but it is a very different storage solution required for hydrogen than fuel, as we know, with 700 atmospheres of pressure required. So that's going to be that would be extremely costly to deploy around the whole country or around the whole continent. So that, I don't think, makes sense for us. And also, it's very energy inefficient, the hydrogen. Until you get to powering the car, you only have 25% of the energy left. So from my point of view, that's why I think we're on the right track, focus entirely on BEVs and go for that, and hydrogen for other solutions.
Absolutely, 100% with that. Application-specific solutions. I think this is one of the problems with the popular kind of narrative in social media, etc. People go for a very simplistic, dumbed-down responses to things rather than understanding the detail, as obviously you do, Joe. Now, can I ask you, Joe, about something I read in the news yesterday, because I didn't quite understand it. It's about shipping hydrogen from Australia, to the UK and other places. How can that really stack up in this whole kind of efficiency game? Can you give us a little flavour of that, please?
Well, in essence,
putting you on the spot, so forgive me.
Well, in essence, basically, you're shipping sunlight, okay? And in January and February, the sun doesn't shine here. Sometimes the wind doesn't blow, and cars and trucks and vehicles all need to be filled up. So we need to have a backup supply on a global basis. So we're bringing hydrogen from very hot countries, moving around the world and bringing it into the UK, as well as making plants here to make green hydrogen here too.
So let me get that right. We're shipping it here. What sort of fuel are the ships using then? They using an efficient fuel system?
Well, they will be. I mean, so at this point in time, possibly not. But over the time, so in 2024, the big shipping companies start bringing, as ship engines businesses, bring out engines running on green ammonia. At that point, you start seeing these companies getting to zero emission on the shipping front. Now, it won't happen overnight, but it'll happen over the next 10 or 15 years. A little bit like, if you fill your battery up today from the grid, and the grid is only 30% decarbonised, it's actually not that green. So the same way over the next 10 years, we'll see shipping become more and more green through green ammonia going through combustion engines.
Right. So what you're saying is some of this technology in and of itself right now isn't absolutely what we need, but it stimulates and triggers the innovation and the supporting technology and stuff around it. That's what you're saying?
Yeah, look, fundamentally, it's very simple. When do you get mass adoption of zero emissions? Well, when it costs the same, when it does the same, when it's as easy to fill up as the incumbent. That's my view on it.
Yeah, I think that's a very good view, I think. Basically, anything where what you bring as a solution is better than what you have today, that's where you get mass adoption. If you go and talk to consumers about anything in regard to change and you explain where it's going to be better, they'll take it. I think trying to force feed issues and solutions to people, whether they're individuals or companies or countries, that's where we start falling down a little bit. Enass, tell me a little bit, if you can, about why we've got this imbalance around the world with the adoption and the approach to solutions with hydrogen in Asia. We mentioned Japan earlier. And what worries me a little bit is that in my world of electric vehicles, what we've seen over time is that the whole of Asia controls 90% of the cell manufacturing process for batteries in electric vehicles. And that's a very potentially destabilizing imbalance. So Europe and the United States are nowhere to be seen at the moment in terms of battery production. But if anyone's here from Northvolt, I know you're catching up, so that's all good. Enass, what are we going to make the same mistake again in terms of picking up hydrogen in Europe and America? Or what are you seeing?
Thanks for asking me the question, but I don't think I am the person who have the answer for that. I think that this is really a matter of putting innovation, scaling businesses, and creating demand, and whoever's going to get there first. By investing with all of these combined and creating ecosystems that can communicate with each other and grow with pace is going to get there first. We see a lot of good signs in Europe and in the UK especially, and I'm personally very hopeful that in the next 10 years the UK could be a hydrogen hub. Initiatives like Joe's and others are great catalysts for getting there. So I'm very positive that we do have a real chance at it. Whether we will be faster to get there, I don't know. We'll just have to see where the market take us and what other initiatives are going to come along in the next 10 years.
Gotcha. Well, talking about going fast, I think this chap here knows about going fast. Nico, what about hydrogen? I can't help but ask you this question. What about hydrogen in Formula One? We've heard different people talk about how they're going to change Formula One. What's your take and sense of where perhaps hydrogen might fit in that?
Well, there is a reason why F1 has disregarded hydrogen for the foreseeable future, because they need to be relevant for the road car industry, and they are convinced that is not going to be the use case for the road car industry. So that is why they are going for synthetic fuels, which also, of course, is debatable and also requires hydrogen in the first place, obviously. Yeah. But I still think I think it's a good direction for F1, and also the issue with hydrogen is a bit safety as well in the sport of F1. I know there's some innovative Kevlar linings coming up to line up the storage of the hydrogen, but still safety certainly would be an issue also in the sport of F1 at such extreme speeds.
Right, and can I just thank you, by the way. Nico gave a shout out to a company called Zero Avia, which is an electric aircraft company. I'm on the advisory board of that company, so thanks.
What a coincidence.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't know. Well, you said it, not me. Now, the thing there, they are flying an aircraft, a 19-seater aircraft, before the end of this year using hydrogen. And so it isn't a question of stuff that's going to keep going for another 3, 4, 5 years in R&D. This is absolutely now something working. So anyone, and I suspect most people sitting here thinking, I have to keep quiet about flying to places. There is hope on the horizon around being able to travel with zero emission aviation. Trust me, it's coming. So thanks again for the shout out.
No problem. I have one question for you, Joe, if I may. You being an investor, where do you think on this path of hydrogen for you, are you going to see your first significant profits?
We're already profitable.
No, the significant ones, the ones you're aiming for, the big game changers.
So reality, the most difficult thing about hydrogen is marrying up supply and demand.
Yeah.
So, you know, the reason I started with buses is if I have 200 buses going home to a depot, I've got demand, and if I've got demand, I can make production and get my utilisation up. Once you've got the utilisation up, you then can go into lots of other vehicles. We've also set up our own finance vehicle to invest across the whole value chain to basically do what China did, which is drive up the volume in batteries, use government subsidy along the way, get the cost base down, and then ultimately export them to the world. We can do that here. We have a lot of wind, we have a lot of water. We could make all of that into hydrogen. Just one thing where you just said about Formula One. Now, Mr. Toyoda from Toyota last month was racing his own car, running on hydrogen on a combustion engine. So Toyota think that probably hydrogen's a part of the future as well. So it could go into Formula One.
Well, there you are then. It's great to see a little bit of difference of opinion. Enass, let me ask you a final question, because any moment now that fire alarm's going to go off. And it is, by the way, it is just a test. I should have used the word test. It's a test fire alarm at 10 o'clock, just so everyone knows. Enass, have you got any kind of technology or any solutions that are coming to properly analyze where the efficiencies sit in all of this? You mentioned to me earlier something to do with software that you were using to give people good analytics on what to do, where to do it, how to do it. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So if we want to increase the adoption of renewable energy, we have to accept that there are intermittents, and there is a lot of uncertainty and risk that comes with adopting an intermittent source of power, with all the advantages and benefits that it has in terms of zero carbon. Now, if you're linking that to a value chain that is very dependent on it, knowing when to generate hydrogen, knowing when to store it, how to store it, when to sell it, who to sell it to based on the demand, having the ability to predict what happens at all ends of the value chain is going to drive costs down, because then you're optimizing your process. It's not throughout just buying the kit and putting it in the ground. So you're learning how to manage your assets based on demand by knowing it or knowing how to predict it in the future. So we have a software tool that can do that, and I think it's a very important tool to look at, in addition to all the hardware that we need to scale and put out there in order to drive costs down.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Well, here you are. You can see people with skin in the game, people with innovation and technology that's coming. It's interesting, Joe, that some of this obviously isn't where it could be or should be right now, but it's going to get there. So we are talking about an evolution concurrent with the revolution.